Hi, and welcome to Creative Spirit Gathering. I'm so glad you could join us today. I hope you have your art journal handy because we're going to be getting messy on the page today. Today, we're going to be exploring the idea of the beautiful spiritual gifts that are within you and the many ways that those gifts blossom into the world. As we get started, I want to share a little story with you. This is actually based on a dream that I had the other day. And in the dream, I had a splinter in my finger and I pulled the splinter out. And as I pulled the splinter out, it actually turned into a bunch of marigold seeds. Now, that might sound a very odd thing, but the other day, my son and I were actually spending the day part of the day, not all day, outside pulling marigold seeds out so we could save them for next year's planting. Now, most of you are familiar with marigolds, beautiful flowers that are often very prominent in the fall time. And I just love the beautiful colors. And right now, our garden is full of marigolds, and they are just blossoming. They look like a little fire field out there. The thing with marigolds is as the flowers fade, the head of the flower itself will actually start to droop. And within it are all the seeds. This little piece right here becomes this, which is filled with seeds. So it doesn't look like much right now, but as I start to pull, can you see that? Can you see all those seeds in there? It's a whole bunch of seeds in this one flower head, and there's actually more in there if I kept going. There's even more hiding in there, and there's still more. But what this dream reminded me as I turned to my journal the next day and was processing, why the splinter that turned into all these marigold seeds, and aside from the fact that it was related to something I had just been doing, what it reminded me of that within each of us are all of these seeds waiting to be planted out into the world. And in specifically, for me, that idea that it was in my finger, like one little finger contains all of these seeds that have the potential to be gifts that I can share forward with the world. And each of those seeds doesn't create one single flower. Each of those seeds can create an entire marigold plant, which has tons and tons of flowers just overflowing on the surface of it. For each of you, there is probably a list of ideas, a list of things that you love doing, things that light you up, things that make you feel like you are living on purpose. Maybe you don't give yourself time to do them every day or even every week, or maybe even some of them you haven't done for a year. But I invite you to take some time now and maybe jot down in your journal, what are some of those things that you love doing? Because what you love is a gift when you share it. What you love is a seed that you can plant out into the world. Now, on top of listing things that you love to do, I want you to list or even just mentally think about those things that other people tell you all the time. You are so good at that. You are such a great listener. You are so good at thinking outside the box and coming up with creative solutions to things. You are so good at seeing different perspectives. You are so good at the way that you express your creativity through writing, through photography, through painting, through drawing, through clay, through whatever it is. You are so good at expressing your creative self. So today we'll be using the marigolds and that idea of abundance of gifts that are within us, just waiting to ripen and fall into the right and perfect place as our inspiration. So for our project today, we're actually going to be starting off by creating a little bit of a mess. I love creating messes in my journal. It gives me a place to start, and it gives me a place to release whatever is going on right now in my life. Now, since I'm going to be making a little bit of a painty mess today, I'm going to actually put a scrap piece of paper behind this page, and that keeps the paint from spilling over onto the edge and like clumping up all my pages together. So if you have a piece of paper on hand, you're just going to use something that you can just kind of slide underneath there, and then you can move it around as you're working. So for a project, I'm going to invite you, again, using acrylics or whatever type of material you would like to use. I've chosen some basic craft paints. The reason why I like the craft paints for my journaling is they tend to dry quicker than some of the more high quality brands, and they're really inexpensive. So I don't mind just dumping it onto the page and smearing it around and just using it as part of the process. So I have here a collection of kind of some fall warm colors that I'm going to be using. Again, inspired by my marigold here. And what I'm going to do is simply squeeze, I'm going to shake them up first. I'm going to squeeze a little bit of paint onto a plastic plate here in the middle. And this will become a palette for a fun little project I'm going to show you. You don't have to keep them separate. In fact, we're going to be blending them together, so it's okay if they touch on the plate here. I'm using a little bit of white as well. So I have my colors on a plastic plate. Now, if you don't have a plastic plate, of course, you could use a paint palette if you have one handy. You could also use like the top of an old sour cream container or something like that. Any sort of material that's non-porous, meaning it's not going to absorb your paints on you, that would defeat the purpose, but something that's flat and that can just kind of contain the paint for you. And instead of using a brush, I'm actually going to use a paper towel. So I'm going to squish it up a little bit to get some irregular shapes and bumps in my paper towel. And then I'm just going to dab the towel right into the paint. And then onto my journal, I'm just going to start dabbing color. You can see that color coming through. It's blending into these warm colors, one into another. And I'm going to go ahead and complete my page that way, filling the entire thing. Again, moving that background page as I need to. There we go. Now that I've completed filling in the page with the paper towel and the paints, I'm going to let this piece dry before I come back into the second part of the project. Now again, if you want to use crayons for this, you could simply kind of scribble color, different blotches of colors next to each other, letting those colors sort of blend and mix together. While this is drying, I want to point out a little tip for anybody who might not be familiar with how colors are going to mix onto the page. I highly recommend you pick up a color wheel and look at what colors are next to each other on the color wheel. This one happens to be a fancy one that tells me what's going to happen when I mix different colors together. So if you're not familiar with color mixing, this is a great tool. I'm sure you can pick them up at any art supply store or online at Amazon. And you can see, you know, if I add blue to this green, here's this color that I'm going to get. So it gives you some ideas. The key is when you're doing something like this, where you're blending lots of colors all together at once, if you have colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, you're going to make brown. If you want brown, that's awesome. But if you're looking to keep your colors bright and vibrant, you want to keep to colors that are close together on your color wheel. We're going to be turning our splotchy, messy, colorful, beautiful, juicy backgrounds into a bouquet, into something new. Again, if you want to do this process. You can make it your own, as always. But what I'm going to be doing is using black paint, pouring it right into the same little plate that I had going before. The reason why I'm using black is that black has a more opaque density to it than some other paints. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start masking around things that I see on the page. And as I do, I'm simply going to be focusing on that these are all parts of the beauty that is me. Remembering and reflecting on all of these gifts that I have to share, and simply just taking the time to presence. Just become present with that idea, not overthinking anything. So I'm going to start noticing and seeing maybe some flower shapes that are within the whole of the painting that I just did. And I'm using the black just to mask it out. So you see that? Now here's a little flower right in there. And I'm going to start doing that around the page, creating different shapes, letting them come through, and just simply seeing them as flowers that are coming out. Here's another one. Feel like Bob Ross, right? Oh, happy little flowers. And just using the black to mask over that dry paint underneath. You could even turn yours in so that maybe there's a vase at the bottom. Now I'm going to actually come back in with some white, and I'm just going to use the back side of my paintbrush here as a sort of a drawing tool with the white paint, and just create some lines, some stems maybe that are coming down. To bring my flower bouquet, since I chose to make them into a vase here, bring it into some sort of connection, bring it all together. The reason why I'm using the back end of my paintbrush and just sort of drawing with it is to keep me from getting too tight with it. If I've got a tiny little brush, there's that tendency to want to get into the details and make it look perfect. But this is about just loose and messy and creating space in our journals for us to simply be processing the ideas, processing those ideas of your spiritual gifts and all of the beautiful blooms that are available when you look at them, and just see how beautiful and magnificent they are when they all come together like that. If you choose not to use paint here, something like a black oil pastel would work really well to create the same type of background, or you could use collage paper on top of it. Be creative, right? Use that gift of creativity and see what unfolds for you. So I'm going to stop this particular page here and create some space for you to really move into the process. And of course, we like to do that with meditation. Meditation gives us the space to simply rest and presence into the stillness before beginning our journal page. We've just talked about lots of ideas in terms of our art process as well as our self-reflection process. So we're going to move into that time of meditation to simply rest into being, and then to move into your journal process from that point of stillness. So I invite you where you are to put down your pen if you still have it in your hand, you've been taking notes, and to simply become comfortable. Adjust your body, roll your shoulders or your neck as you need to. Take a couple of breaths. Close your outer eyes if that feels comfortable. And simply let yourself rest here a moment. Noticing the inhale and the exhale without trying to control or change anything. Letting the breath just continue to remind you of the rhythm, the cycle of in and out, moving into that feeling of flow, in and out. And then we bring our awareness within. Bring our awareness to the still point at the center of our being. Finding peace and touching silence. On the next inhale, bring an awareness of gratitude to this moment, of gratitude for the opportunity to focus on the beautiful gifts that you have within you, these beautiful gifts that you were born with, gifts of love and kindness and compassion, gifts of creativity and faith, gifts of understanding and peace. And as we move now into our journal process, we open our eyes, ready, willing, open to explore and express the many ways that our being shows up as beautiful blossoms that are our unique gifts that we have to give to ourselves when we use them and that we have to give to others. I hope you enjoy this process, and I hope that you consider joining us for our Monday morning Creative Spirit Gathering using our Zoom room. We meet together at 11:30 Central Time. Check your own time zone and meet us in the Zoom room. The link is right on our website at unityartsministry.org and under the Creative Spirit Gathering button. I look forward to seeing you there, and until then, bye and have a blessed. I know that this work is powerful work, and that's why I want to offer it to you on a donation basis, meaning give what you can, give from your heart. We thank you in advance for your generous support, making sure that our website is updated, that our Zoom fees are paid, and that our staff is paid for their time. We thank you for taking a moment now to visit our website at unityartsministry.org to share your gifts.